My father humiliated me at church for refusing to give my brother $100,000 for his wedding fund. The sun streamed through the stained glass, casting a kaleidoscope of colors on the pews. It was another typical Sunday at St. Patrick's, a brick church that looked unchanged since my childhood. Familiar faces surrounded me, all dressed in their Sunday best, a plain canvas for secrets and whispers. Little did I know today's service would unravel the very fabric of my loyalty to family. As the organ played a solemn hymn, a knot tightened in my stomach. I glanced over at my brother Jake. He sat beaming, excitement radiating off him like sunlight. We'd always shared a bond forged in the fires of our messy upbringing. But today felt different. My father, with his gruff demeanor and command over the congregation, sat with a searching gaze. I could feel the heat of his expectations resting squarely on my shoulders. When the pastor wrapped up his sermon, I had no inkling of the... It was a line he'd rehearsed too many times. He turned to me, eyes glinting with determination. "Sarah, we need $100,000 for Jake's wedding. Make it happen." Oh, silence. The atmosphere shifted palpably as my heart raced. A gasp echoed through the pews. Did he just say what I thought he said? I shook my head, disbelief tinged with anger. No, Dad, I won't. The weight of my defiance bounced off the walls like thunder, igniting the air with shock. Whispers started. Curious glances ricocheted through the congregation like bullets. My palms were clammy, my own pulse drowned out by the muffled tones of judgment that surged around us. "You're being selfish!" His voice thundered. A thunderous knot formed in my throat. How could he humiliate me like this? In front of everyone? In that moment, I felt the sting of years of resentment bubbling to the surface. The endless financial struggles, the favoritism he'd shown Jake since we were kids. It was like a mirror reflecting not only my shame, but also the truth. My father was a man who demanded loyalty, but offered none in return. My breath hitched as I searched for a reaction. The pastor shuffled uncomfortably, his eyes darting between us, the weight of the moment sinking in like a stone. Some in the congregation averted their gazes, pretending to examine the intricate woodwork of the rafters, while others leaned in, hungry for the drama unfolding. I could feel a woman's eyes piercing me with judgment. "How dare you refuse?" she whispered to her friend there. All around me, the intent glares dug deeper into my soul, igniting a fire of indignation. Did they even know the real me? As Jake's expression fell, confusion turned to despair. It struck me, caught in a delicate dance between loyalty and truth. Would I betray my convictions for the sake of family reputation, or change the narrative that had long confined me? The size of the decision loomed over me like a storm cloud, ready to burst. I took a deep breath, the air thick with uncertainty. Could I remain steadfast against my father's humiliation, Or would the need for familial acceptance cover my rebellion like a shroud? The answer hung in the air, tense and unresolved, leaving me grappling with the weight of loyalty and the shadows of betrayal looming just beyond my reach. Hey, before you continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning for you. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes a difference. Let's interact. The air thickened with tension, and all eyes remained fixed on me, the moment stretching like an elastic band ready to snap. My mind raced, racing against the drumbeat of my heart as I prepared to stand firm against my father's demands. But then a sharp gasp from the back of the church cut through the silence, halting my resolve. I turned, my heart plummeting as I saw a familiar figure stumbling through the aisle. It was my mother, her face pale, eyes wide and brimming with tears. The congregation hushed, the energy shifting from judgment to confusion. "Stop it! Just stop!" she cried, her voice cracking under the weight of her emotions. My father froze, surprise etching across his features. "Mum?" "Oh, what's wrong?" I blurted, urgency clawing at me. She reached the front, her feet stumbling over the carpet, each step heavy with desperation. "You don't know. None of you know," she gasped, struggling for breath. "You need to listen to me. There's something you don't understand." The murmur in the church shifted again, whispers fluttering like moths around a flame. I felt the crowd's gaze expand, leaving me feeling like a ghost in my own life. My heart raced. What truth could possibly unravel here? "Jake isn't who you think he is," she shouted, her voice echoing through the quiet. The words hung in the air like thick fog, and I fought to comprehend them. My brother, the golden child, the apple of our father's eye? What could she possibly mean? "Jake, what do you mean?" I stammered, my throat tightening as I looked at my brother, confusion morphing into alarm on his face. Then my mother took a deep, shaky breath. "He's not your brother. He's my son and your father's illegitimate child." Gasps rippled through the congregation. The collective silence was deafening, a vacuum where time seemed to stand still. My heart stopped. I could hardly process the impact of her words. Behind me, I felt the weight of judgment shift to sympathy, but my mind raced. My father's face turned ashen, his mouth opening and closing as if grasping for a defense that wouldn't come. All eyes shifted between the three of us, the weight of this newfound revelation crashing like waves against me. Could it be true? The pastor's voice trembled, stumbling over his words. "This isn't the place," he said weakly, but there was no stopping the flood. The truth spilled from my mother like the colors from the stained glass above, illuminating a dark space I never knew existed. Tell them about," my mother gasped, but suddenly she stopped. A deep, wrenching cough seized her, and she collapsed to the floor, the breaths trapped in her chest. The church gasped sharply, the sound morphing into chaos as people rushed forward. But I was frozen. Jake knelt beside her, shock glaring on his face. I felt myself drifting. Reality blurring around the edges. My father stumbled backward, guilt and anger erupting in the narrow space between him and his wife. "What have you done?" he bellowed, rage mingled with fear. "You'll ruin everything!" Everything, my entire life, spun on its axis. The familiar sense of loyalty crumbled to dust. I stood, heart racing, mind whirling. Did I even know the people I called family? And as I glanced down at my mother, frail but defiant, the question swelled in my mind. What did this mean for us? What else was hidden in the shadows? The air grew heavy, soaked in confusion and desperation, and the truth loomed, ready to unravel everything once and for all. As I stared at my mother on the floor, the air around us thickened with confusion and fear. People rushed to her side, but my mind felt like it was spinning out of control. Tangled in revelations I couldn't process, I blinked rapidly, trying to clear the fog clouding my thoughts. Jake was kneeling beside our mother, panic rising in his voice. "Someone call an ambulance!" His face was pale, eyes wide. I wanted to run to him, but my feet felt planted in concrete. My father stood frozen, shock suffocating what little composure he had left. The church was a wild sea of voices, whispering, shouting, stirring up chaos. My heart pounded like a war drum. Then, in the middle of the frenzy, the pastor shouted, "Everyone, please stay calm." But how could anyone remain calm? The whispering in the pews grew louder. My father's expression curled into something dark, a mix of rage and despair. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, a deep crack split through the air. A loud crash echoed from the entrance, and everyone turned in shock. The heavy church doors slammed open, revealing a tall figure silhouetted against the bright sun. "Stop! Just stop!" The voice belonged to someone I recognized, but never expected to see here. Chloe, my father's estranged sister, stormed down the aisle. Her presence was like a thunderclap. Her hair, wild and unkempt, framed her face, and her eyes were sharp with a furious light. An unsettled buzz filled the air. "Chloe?" my father whispered, disbelief hanging in the word. He took a step back, as if trying to retreat from his own shadow. "I've heard everything," she shouted, her tone slicing through the panic like a knife. "And you all deserve to know the truth." "Chloe, don't do this here," Jake tried to plead, but she was already on a roll, fueled by desperation. "You've been lying to everyone for too long, Peter." Her voice trembled with an uncontainable fury. "This family is built on secrets, but no more. It's time for everyone to hear your shame." My heart raced. I felt like I was watching a tempest build from the sidelines, wanting to run, but too mesmerized to leave. The congregation erupted in surprised whispers. My mother's eyes widened, a mixture of fear and anticipation. "What do you mean?" My father's voice wavered, defensiveness creeping in. "You have no right." "Yes, I do. You thought you could keep your past hidden, but I won't let that happen. You're not the only one with secrets." I felt a lump in my throat as I pieced it together. How much did she know? What could be worse? Chloe stepped closer, her gaze piercing through the crowd. What if I told you Jake isn't just your father's illegitimate son? What if I said he's not even one of yours? Whispers turned to gasps. My stomach knotted and I stumbled back, hitting the pew behind me. What? No! I shouted, shaking my head. That can't be. But Chloe continued, her voice gaining strength. Jake is the result of an affair between your mother and my husband. Your mother kept it a secret, and your father never suspected a thing. The words landed like a bomb. Shockwaves rippled through the church. Confusion replaced sympathy, replaced judgment. I looked between Jake and my father, their faces morphing into masks of horror. Was it true? My brain felt ready to explode. How could I have not seen the signs? Everything I thought I knew fractured in that moment, splintering under the weight of betrayal so profound it felt like a knife wound. The truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. As Jake's expression twisted between shock and fury, I realized this revelation ripped apart not just my identity, but everyone's. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, the lights flickered, plunging us into darkness. The church gasped in unison, and in that breathless void, I felt terror looming. What else was hiding in the shadows? And who else would step into the light? The darkness wrapped around us, cold and suffocating. Panic engulfed the church, intermingling with gasps and murmurs. My heart raced, echoing in the silence that followed Chloe's words. I glanced at my father, whose face was now a mask of dread. Jake's eyes darted around the congregation, searching for answers in the faces of strangers. The flickering lights returned, illuminating the chaos. But just then, a sudden thud broke through the confusion, a sound that made everyone freeze. From the back of the church, a heavy thump reverberated as the doors swung open once again. A figure stumbled inside, panting, his clothes disheveled, face drenched in sweat. "Wait! Wait! Stop!" he shouted, his voice hoarse, filled with urgency. It was Mark, my father's longtime friend, but there was something wild in his eyes. "You all need to listen now!" The congregation shifted, eyes wide with confusion. My father's expression turned from horror to rage. My voice rang out, breaking through the noise, a lifeline in the chaos. Jake's not the only son. There's another, and they're connected, more connected than you can understand. If you think this is bad, wait until you hear what I've dug up. The air shifted again, pulling everyone closer into the storm, hearts racing with fear and curiosity. The walls felt like they were closing in, the fabric of our lives fraying. What had been laid bare before us was a tangled web of betrayal, love, and hidden truths. I felt the ground shake beneath me. I looked at Jake, who had gone pale. "What do you mean?" he breathed, the fear creeping into his voice. But Mark simply shook his head, regret etched on his face. "I won't say more here." "Not now, but you all need to come with me. There's more to uncover, and it begins with a story that's bigger than the church, bigger than family. You'll want answers, and I can give them." And in the silence that followed, I could feel a tremor beneath the surface of all we thought we knew. With every passing second, the world shifted, and for the first time, I realized just how far the roots of our secrets ran, and where they might lead us next. The darkness hung around us, thick and suffocating. Mark's words echoed in my head, and the atmosphere shimmered with restless energy. I watched as the congregation shifted, their expressions morphing from curiosity to something else, an uneasy anticipation. Jake stood frozen, his hands trembling as he searched my face for some kind of reassurance. My mother, still on the floor, looked desperately from Mark to Jake, confusion suffocating her features. But before anyone could react further, a loud crash reverberated through the church. The sound sliced through the tension like a knife. In rushed a figure, wild-eyed and breathless, a man I didn't recognize, but something in his stance made me uneasy. He was disheveled, clothes rumpled, hair unkempt. His presence sent a ripple of confusion through the crowd. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice raw with urgency. "I need to talk to you all. You don't understand." "Who are you?" my father barked, anger rising like a tide. "It's about Jake and Sarah." His gaze darted nervously around the room, but settled on us, eyes wide with an unsettling clarity. "What more could there possibly be?" I shot back, frustration mixing with fear. The walls seemed to close in, and I felt my breath quicken. "Jake isn't just Jake!" the man exclaimed, desperation radiating from him. "He's not who you think. He's connected to all of this? Him too?" my father scoffed, rolling his eyes. But before he could dismiss the man, I felt a crackle in the air, a sudden shift. "It's true!" the man shouted over the murmurs of disbelief. "Jake isn't just your brother, he's also your half-brother, connected by blood in ways you can't even imagine." "What are you talking about?" I blurted, my heart pounding. "Just tell us already. Jake and Sarah, they are twins." Silence slammed the church like a door. I felt my heart seize in my chest. It felt ridiculous, impossible. Glances flickered between Jake and me, questions hanging thickly in the air. "How could that be?" my mother whispered, her voice barely audible. The man took a large breath, his eyes glimmering with a strange mixture of dread and urgency. "The same blood runs through you both. Your mother had to keep it hidden. She made a choice to give Jake a different life. But now it's all unraveling, and the truth—" Mark interrupted, voice booming in shocked disbelief. "You don't know what you're saying." But the man pressed on, nearly pleading. "I know what I saw. I've seen the records, papers that prove everything. The adoption was a cover." Gasps echoed through the congregation, disbelief morphing to outrage. I felt like I was spinning, everything I thought I knew about my family fracturing before my eyes. I focused on Jake, who looked pale, confusion etched across his face. "Sarah?" he stammered, eyes wide as he took a step back. "Is it true? Am I?" A sudden noise cut through the chaos, a crash, and the lights flickered ominously above us again. Just as the darkness returned, the tension palpably shifted. "You'll leave my family out of this!" My father's voice thundered through the air, a desperate attempt at control amid the storm of revelations. But the man wouldn't relent. "You can't cover it up anymore, Peter. Not now, when everything is crumbling. Secrets have a way of surfacing." And with that, just as the lights came back, a deafening bang like a shotgun blast echoed from the back of the church. And I swiveled around in shock. A figure stood there, a mask obscuring their features, gun in hand. "No more lies!" they yelled, voice shrill with rage and pain. In that instant, our world shattered into chaos. And as icy fear gripped my heart, I realized this was only the beginning. The darkness loomed over us, thick and uneasy. The masked figure stood at the front of the church, gun in hand, claiming control. The murmurs from the congregation turned into frantic whispers. Eyes darted in every direction as confusion and fear washed over the crowd like a tidal wave. "Put the gun down!" my father shouted, stepping forward, his voice shaking but firm. "We can work this out!" But the masked figure laughed, a harsh, cruel sound echoing in the hollow space. "You don't understand. This isn't just about you. It's about all the lies. You think you know the truth?" They aimed the gun, bare finger hovering near the trigger. My heart raced. Adrenaline coursed through my veins as I grabbed Jake's arm, squeezing tightly. "We need to get out of here," I whispered urgently, but he stood frozen, eyes fixed on the figure. "Jake," I urged, but he didn't budge. "Everyone's been hiding from the truth," the figure shouted, and the chaos morphed into silence. "But I'm done being ignored." There was a flicker of movement behind the figure, and I blinked. A flash of red caught my eye. A woman breaking through the crowd, eyes wild and desperate, waving her arms. It was Chloe, my father's sister. Her face twisted with rage and determination. "Stop!" she screamed, charging at the figure. "You'll regret this. Leave my family out of your madness." Just as she lunged, a gunshot blared through the air. Time froze. Gasps and screams merged into a cacophony of terror. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet as I turned to see Chloe collapsing to the ground, her body crumpling like a rag doll. "No!" I shrieked, my throat tightening, fear flooding in waves. "Chloe!" The masked figure seemed equally stunned, the gun lowering slowly. Jake's face turned ashen, eyes wide with horror. "What just happened?" he murmured, nearly collapsing beside me. Panic erupted in the church. Mothers grabbed children, and people surged toward the exits in a tidal wave of panic. I could hardly breathe, my chest tightening. My father reached for Chloe, kneeling beside her, hands trembling. "Stay with us! Stay awake!" he shouted, fear in his voice, a sound I had never heard from him before. It shattered the air, raw and pleading, but Chloe's eyes fluttered, blood seeping from her side. "Peter, they need to know," she gasped, choking on her words, her breath growing shallower. "What do you mean?" He shook his head desperately, eyes darting around the room as if searching for answers in the chaos. Then, just like that, she whispered something that jolted me. "Jake isn't your brother." Her voice faded into a whisper, as if she was pulling her last strength to speak. I couldn't process it. The world spun around me as I connected dots of pain and fear, every revelation hitting harder. Jake's eyes narrowed, trying to comprehend the cascade of betrayal and loss. What are you saying, Chloe? I need to know. But Chloe took one last breath, her eyes glazing over. And just like that, the light in them went dim. No, I moaned, collapsing to my knees. The world around me fell silent, the weight of the moment crashing over me. What did she mean? Why did it feel like every truth I knew was unraveling? I glanced at my father, who was now on the floor, cradling Chloe's head. Anguish distorted his face. This was a man who demanded loyalty, but had built a life marred by secrets. The masks had shattered, revealing the raw, exposed truth. A murmur spread through the congregation as they processed the scene unfolding before them. Fear mingling with growing outrage. "Is she dead?" Someone shouted from the back, breaking the silence. I could feel the tremors of uncertainty ripple through the crowd. But there was something deeper. A layer of unspoken tension that hinted at more, so much more yet to come. And lingering in the depths of my mind was a question. One I knew would linger long after this moment. What other secrets lay buried, waiting to emerge from the shadows? The silence hung heavy in the air as Chloe's body lay on the floor, a haunting stillness enveloping the church. Eyes flicked between her, my father, and the stunned congregation. It was as if time had stilled, each second stretching painfully. Then a muffled cry broke. "Call for help!" someone shouted, breaking the trance. Panic surged as people scrambled for their phones, fear ripping through the crowd like wildfire. Jake fell to his knees, shock wrapping around him like a cold shroud. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, my head swirling with unanswered questions. I glanced at my father, who knelt by Chloe, tears spilling down his cheeks. "You can't leave me," he wailed, clutching her hand. His voice cracked, raw and desperate. The man who had always seemed so invincible was now crumbling, stripped bare in front of everyone. "Chloe, please, hold on!" I wanted to reach out, to comfort, to push away the chaos. But I felt trapped in my own fear. The barriers built over years were crashing down, but I didn't know what lay within the rubble. And then it happened. A ripple of movement caught my eye near the back of the church. A figure stepped forward, holding something shiny. My heart raced. "Who are you?" I called out, fear tightening my chest. But the figure revealed themselves, pulling down their hoodie. My breath caught in my throat. It was Ben, the quiet guy from school, the one whose family had moved away years ago. "You're all in danger," he shouted, voice trembling with urgency. "You have to listen to me." "Danger?" My father's voice dripped with confusion and anger. "What are you talking about?" "Everything! It's connected!" Ben cried, eyes wide with an almost frantic urgency. I didn't want to believe it. But there are people out there who want to silence the truth. If Chloe started talking, they'd come for her. My heart pounded. What truth? What are you saying? The baby, the one born the night you thought everything was fine, is still alive. Someone made sure it stayed hidden. And it's not just about Jake or Chloe. It ties back to your father's affair. He stepped closer, breathless. They won't stop until everyone connected to it is gone. What? My mind raced, struggling to absorb the weight of his words. It didn't make sense. How could there be a baby, a hidden child? I was lost in a fog of revelations, glimpsing the edges of a larger picture I couldn't quite grasp. Enough! My father thundered, shaking. You don't know what you're talking about. But Ben pressed on, desperation creeping into his voice. No, it's true. I overheard them. They're looking for the baby to keep the secrets buried. It's not just about Chloe. It's all connected. The atmosphere shifted again, a brewing storm in the air as the congregation whispered in disbelief. I could almost see the gears turning in their minds. Doubt and fear blending into something more profound, more sinister. Just stop, Ben, my father screamed, his face twisted with anger. But the fury in his voice was laced with fear. And then the universe tilted again. The church doors burst open. A group of men in dark suits and sunglasses stormed in. My stomach dropped as they swarmed towards us, eyes sharp as knives. Get down, I yelled, instinct kicking in. The crowd panicked, scattering towards the exits. My heart raced, the world collapsing in on itself. Jake, stay close. I grabbed his arm, dragging him back. We pressed against the wall, my mind racing. A hidden baby, secrets that could destroy everything. What had we walked into? And as the men approached, the true weight of our family's past loomed overhead. My father's unwillingness to face it, the lies. Where is he? One of the men barked. Panic surged again, gripping us all in a stranglehold. Ho! I managed to croak, confusion battling fear. Do not play games, the man snapped. We know the baby is somewhere here, and we will find it. What baby? I thought. A chilling realization washed over me. This was bigger than my family, bigger than any of us. And suddenly, all those fractured stories began sealing together, revealing a twisted reality none of us could escape. Step aside, the man shouted, and I felt an involuntary tremor deep in my bones. It was just the beginning of a storm that would change everything. Did they really think they could uncover what lay buried, or keep it hidden forever? With every heartbeat, the truth grew heavier, pushing against the fragile strands of our lives. Shadows lurked as I searched for a way out of this nightmare, the danger closing in like a noose around my family. And I finally understood. Whatever happened next would shatter all our lives. The air crackled with tension. The masked figure held the gun, steady, aimed at the heart of our chaos. Every heartbeat felt like thunder, drowning out the frantic whispers weaving through the pews. My hands trembled. I pulled Jake closer, trying to shield him from the growing storm. Where is he? The man demanded again. his voice a knife slicing through the noise. Who was he searching for? Was it the hidden child? The words hung heavily, suffocating my thoughts. Just then, a loud bang erupted. The church doors burst open again, slamming against the wall with a force that rattled my bones. A surge of relief flooded me as I turned to see a team of police officers storming in, badges flashing, commands booming. "Everyone get down!" they shouted. A masked figure's grip faltered, surprise flickering in his eyes. But before anyone could react, an unexpected loud crash rang out behind the officers. In a split second, a massive chandelier above us shattered, raining glass like deadly confetti. I instinctively dove to the ground, dragging Jake with me as the world erupted in chaos. The thud of glass against wood echoed like a heartbeat, and screams erupted, filling the air with panic. "Get down!" I yelled, covering Jake with my body. Splinters of light danced in the chaos, reflecting off the shards, creating a kaleidoscope of terror. I felt my heart racing, fear clawing at my throat, and then I heard it, a woman's scream piercing the air. My mother, she had flung herself forward, arms outstretched toward the masked figure. "No! Stop!" she cried, her voice filled with desperation. Time slowed. The masked man turned, caught off guard by her sudden movement. There was a flash. A gunshot rang out. My breath hitched, caught in my throat. "Mom!" I shouted, but it was drowned under the roar of chaos. But instead of falling, the masked figure staggered back. The police surged forward, and I watched in disbelief as my mother emerged from behind the figure. She held something shiny in her hand, a small metallic object, and then it dawned on me, a knife. Her chest heaved, tears glistening in her eyes. "You think you can control us?" she screamed. And the unexpected force of her words sent a shockwave through the room. The masked figure stumbled, clutching his side where crimson began to seep through his shirt. The officers rushed in, surrounding the masked figure. It all happened so fast, a blur of chaos and confusion. And as they restrained him on the ground, something else washed over my mind. A chilling realization. "Mom," I gasped, scrambling to her side as the officers apprehended their target. "Are you okay?" She turned to me, face pale, but eyes fierce. "Sarah, listen, there's something you need to know. It's all connected. I thought I was shielding you." "What do you mean?" I interrupted, heart racing, as the world spun around me. The masked figure squirmed beneath the officers, anger glinting in his eyes as he struggled. They didn't just want a child. They wanted power. And Jake, he's not just linked by blood. He's the key to everything. Jake's face twisted in confusion, shock flooding his features. "What do you mean? What are you saying?" Before she could answer, a voice sliced through the din. "Enough!" The voice was familiar, sharp like a shard of glass. It was Mark, eyes blazing as he pushed his way through the chaos. "You all need to understand, the truth is bigger than any of you thought." "Mark!" My throat tightened as he stepped closer. "What do you know? With a look of grim determination, he pointed to the masked figure. This man, he is connected to something deeper, something dangerous. And you, he looked straight at me, are caught in the center. In that moment, everything shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't just in a twisted family drama. This was a web of power, of lies, running far deeper than I could imagine. The masked figure glared at me, desperation twisting his features. You have no idea what you've stumbled into. The horror of his words struck me. Reality dimmed, shadows clawing at every corner of my understanding. What secrets had my mother kept hidden? What was it that tied us together? Sarah, you must trust me, Mark said, tone urgent. The weight of the world pressed down on me. Everything I thought I knew slipped through my fingers like sand. I could feel the darkness encroaching, suffocating. A storm had erupted around me, and I was left holding the fragments of a truth I never wanted to uncover. Would I have to face whatever horrors lay behind this twisted truth? And as I stole a frantic glance at the masked figure, I realized this wasn't just about family anymore. It was about survival. And suddenly, my heart sank deeper than before. Who could I trust when everyone was a puzzle piece deceptively placed in a game I never agreed to play? The air was electric, charged with chaos and confusion. I watched as the masked figure was wrestled to the ground, the police officer's movements swift and practiced. But my heart pounded for other reasons. My mother's words hung in the air, begging for clarity in the whirlwind around us. YouTube was nothing compared to this. Sarah, you must trust me, Mark echoed in my mind. But how could I? My thoughts were a whirlpool of uncertainty, drawing me into an abyss of confusion. And yet, in that moment, I desperately needed answers. As the officers secured the masked man, a sharp cry erupted from the back of the room. A voice I recognized. "Stop this! Don't!" The crowd parted like water, revealing a young woman, breathless and panicked. It was Emily, my childhood friend, the one who'd moved away years ago. "What are you doing here?" I gasped, shock cutting through my pounding heart. "Sarah, you don't understand. You need to get out now." Her voice trembled, urgency spilling from her lips. All eyes darted to her, confusion rippling through the crowd. "Out of where?" Jake stammered, the fear palpable. "Not here! Not now!" she shouted, pushing through the throng, her eyes wild. "They're coming for you!" "They want to erase everything." Who wants to erase what?" I demanded, desperation rising in my voice. Before she could respond, the atmosphere shifted again, heavy with a looming threat. Suddenly, the main doors slammed shut, as if by an unseen force. The lights flickered again, plunging us into shadows, punctuated by frantic gasps. The tension rose, thick as smoke. Then, like a bomb going off, a shout erupted from the masked figure below. "You've all been pawns in the game!" he croaked, twisting under the weight of the officers. "What are you talking about?" I shouted, my voice trembling, battling the confusion swirling through the room. He laughed wildly, eyes glinting with a mix of madness and clarity. "You think you know your family?" he spat, struggling against his captors. "Peter's secrets run deeper than you can imagine." "Enough!" one officer barked, but the figure pressed on, laughing like a deranged prophet. "Jake's not just linked, you're all part of it. There's something hidden beneath the surface, a truth that will destroy you all." "Shut him up!" another officer barked, but I felt my heart race. What was he trying to say? Just then, a loud crash resounded from outside. A group of figures burst into the church, a whirlwind of motion and urgency. My blood ran cold as I recognized them, people I'd seen before, lurking in the shadows of my family's past. "Get away from him!" one shouted, stepping forward with determined eyes. "He's ours!" And then it hit me. My heart plummeted. Those figures were connected to my father's past, whispers of a family legacy woven through shadows. They spilled into the light, revealing themselves as old family friends. Allies of my father, but now something darker. "Not the baby!" one of the newcomers screamed, lunging toward the masked figure. "Goodbye, calm. Hello, chaos." The world around me exploded into confusion. I felt a jolt of terror ripple through the crowd. "What's going on?" "No, you don't understand," Emily yelled, her eyes wide with fear. "It's all linked to Chloe." The name stabbed through the chaos. Chloe, my father's sister, the one who had tried to shield us. What did she have to do with this? "Chloe knew too much," one of the newcomers shouted. "That's why they had to silence her." All my previous questions spun inside my head, colliding with the shocking truth surfacing in front of me. How many layers of betrayal and secrecy did my family hide? Suddenly, a piercing scream erupted from outside, and I felt my blood run cold. "No!" I cried, horror leaking into every fiber of my being. "What did you do?" Before I could process anything further, everything fused into one terrifying realization. The danger was far more extensive than any of us had comprehended. And just as the fear gripped my throat, Jake clutched my arm, his eyes wide. "Sarah, what if we're not just caught up in this? What if we're destined to be a part of it?" The weight of that question crashed into me, igniting a flicker of dread in the depths of my core. What might that mean for us? What if our blood truly tied us to a legacy darker than we could imagine? And as the chaos swirled around, I braced for the truth I had not yet dared to confront. As chaos consumed the church, the masked figure wrestled with the officers, his face twisted in rage. The reality of our situation ripped through my mind like jagged glass. All those hidden truths were finally dragging into the light. But at what cost? "Get away from my family!" my father shouted, raw emotion gnawing at his voice. Chloe lay still on the ground. A grim reminder of the consequences of our tangled web. Fear gripped me. The man's threat loomed larger than life, and I felt trapped. "Sarah," Jake cried, pulling me back. "We need to leave. They're coming for us." His eyes were wide, panic pouring from his voice. I turned, desperate to find my mother, and saw her standing, arms trembling, knife still glinting in her hand, fierce and defiant. "Enough of this!" she yelled, voice cutting through the turmoil. "Enough lies!" The energy shifted in the room. People stared, stunned by her unexpected strength, and, still on the floor, locked eyes with me. "Sarah, you don't have to do this. We can expose them, together." His eyes shone with urgency. But just as hope flickered, another loud crash echoed. The door burst open again. 2 more figures rushing in, dressed in black suits, but with an air of authority. "Everyone get on the ground!" they shouted, badges glinting. The click of weapons filled the air. Reality hit hard. 2 worlds clashed in a whirlwind of truth and violence, and I had to decide where I stood. "Wait!" I shouted, stepping forward, my resolve growing. "We want answers! All of us!" I gestured to my family, shaking but united in our fear. The officers exchanged glances, and the masked figure seized the moment. "They're hiding the truth! They don't care if you die!" He spat resentfully. "Silence!" one of the officers barked, pushing him down. The weight of his words suffocated me. "Mom, what truth?" I asked, cautious yet desperate. But she only shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "The baby, it's all connected. We can't let it go." Her voice cracked. Suddenly, a shadow crossed the doorway. A figure stepped out, a child clinging to their side. "I'm here! You came!" The sweet voice cut through the chaos, piercing my heart. A soft little girl with curly hair, wide eyes shining and innocent, stood there. Panic erupted again, cries of shock ricocheting off the walls. The truth hit harder than I imagined. It was more than a family drama. This was life or death, destinies intertwined. "We must protect her!" someone shouted. The masked figure's eyes flickered with understanding. "You'll never keep her safe. Get the child!" An officer shouted. The struggle erupted anew, the air thick with confusion and realization, my heart racing with every beat. "Everyone back!" I yelled, and in that moment, all my pain shifted to resolve. We were stronger together, bound by blood and secrets. As figures surged, I reached for Jake's hand. "We face this together!" I declared bravely. He nodded, resolve forming in his eyes. "Together!" With shaking hands, we moved closer, standing united. My heart hammered loudly. This was our fight now. Together, against the shadows of the past. Then, as everything blurred again in the chaos, I felt a flicker of hope. Our family might rise from the ashes. And suddenly, I understood. The real power lay not in blood alone, but in the choices we made from here on out. As the officers finally secured the masked figure, a quiet settled over the room, heavy but charged with possibility. Though uncertainty loomed, I felt the edges of a new beginning. But just as the relief washed over us, the older man from the group appeared, blood on his hands and darkness in his eyes. "You've only seen a glimpse of what's coming." And just like that, the storm of secrets stirred again, a whisper echoing in the corners of my mind. What would reality hold for us next? Everything was shifting. And as I glanced around at my family, my heart heavy but determined, I knew our fight was just beginning. You have to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. We're only getting started here. This is the time to show your support by pressing the like button now to feed the algorithm and flooding the comment section with